Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Q&A for March 2024. You've got questions, I've got answers, so let's get into it. First question is from Santiao. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and it says Q&A number 4 of asking, how is Kitty Meow Meow doing? Kitty Meow Meow is not here. I actually have no idea where she went. But I also included the response to this comment, which is from Forsakenity. I tried. Which said, planning to overthrow the channel. Honestly, with that cat, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, the cat is fine. She hasn't shown up in very many videos. She has been in some of them meowing in the background and ruining my recordings, so she's been pretty good at that. But when it comes to actually being in the videos, yeah, she's been sort of absent. Sorry about that. I don't have control over the cat after all. The next question is from Niku OMG, who says, if you were forced to sit down and work on a Roblox game, what kind of game would you make, and do you think you would like what you created? Well, that poses a few problems. Number one, I don't really know how to code. So if I sat down to make a Roblox game, you would probably end up with a base plate or some sort of amalgamation of different parts because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. So if I did sit down to make a game, that's what would happen. And do I think that I would like what I created? Probably not, because it's borderline, if not straight up, unplayable. I have gotten the question in the past about 350,000 times, Eclipse, if you were going to make a game, or are you going to make a game, yada yada yada. And so to try to give you a sort of better answer to your question, if I were forced to sit down and have somebody else make a game, what would I make, and do I think it would be fun? Well, I hope it would be fun. And unfortunately for me, the biggest place of expertise, and still the place that I'm probably the most passionate about when it comes to Roblox games, is the unfortunately incredibly dying Roblox JoJo genre. I'm just attached to it. I don't know what else to tell you guys. And as I've said 100 times in the past, I haven't bothered to try to make one because I can't code, number one, and trying to pay for and bankroll a game that probably won't succeed is not very viable, and trying to find developers that will just work on a game and not get paid until it actually comes out, also probably not feasible. But making a game and stuff like that is more in the realm of possibility, I think, now than it was before. I might talk about it in its own video, I'm not entirely sure, just to gauge interest in terms of how many people that watch my stuff are developers and that kind of stuff, because obviously I can't really do it myself. But I hope that answered your question. Largefather9918 says, the murder mystery video got me thinking. Do you plan to look at more older classic games, or was that the exception because it still has some slight relevance? That one's pretty easy to answer. It was made to cash in because lots of people were playing it, 100%. It just so happened that Murder Mystery 2 was something that I'd played before, a long time ago, and it being still around and it still having 100,000 plus players, which is ridiculous, by the way, had me making a video on it because I was banking on hopefully some of those 100,000 people watching the video, which in hindsight was kind of stupid because there's not much of a game there. Most of those people are on mobile, and most of those people definitely couldn't give a rat's ass about some random jackass rambling about the game for 10 minutes or whatever. It got a few views, so I'm not totally upset with it, but it was kind of dumb in hindsight. As for looking at previous classic Roblox games and stuff like that, the interest just isn't there. I know the interest isn't there, and I've done videos playing sort of classic games on Roblox before, and none of those have done well. So I can't imagine doing reviews or retrospectives on those games would do any better. So no, not likely whatsoever. YTS Tachi says, what's your favorite and least favorite genre of games, and what's your favorite game of all time? Well, the second one I've answered several times, and that's Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But my favorite and least favorite genre of games, I don't think I've answered. Favorite, I guess I would say first-person shooters, just because I play a lot of them. But I don't really know if it's necessarily completely true, because I like a lot of genres of games, but those are just the ones I play the most, so technically I suppose that classifies it as my favorite. Yeah, we'll just go with that to try to not beat around the bush. My favorite genre of games is going to be first-person shooters. My least favorite genre of games This one's kind of hard. Probably like point and click adventures. Do those count? That's not very fun. I'd probably go with that. Point and click adventures. Simulator games, like not the ones on Roblox, the fake simulator games, like the real simulator games, like Farming Simulator and stuff like that. I just really don't understand those games. If you're farming in real life, why would you want to play a simulator of farming? It breaks my brain. So I guess simulator games and point and click adventure games are pretty up there. But other than that, I don't think I can come up with anything good for you in terms of least favorite genres. Those are pretty rough. Maybe one asks, what are your thoughts on The Hunt? And I really just couldn't care less. I haven't interacted with it whatsoever because I really just don't care, which is probably an L. I should have made a whole bunch of videos on it and tried to capitalize and make money. Hindsight's 2020. Too late for that now. But yeah, I just didn't care. These Roblox events that come along that offer up clothing that I'll never use because I don't care what my character looks like, and have me go play games that I don't care about. Like, all of that stuff is far, far beyond what I can be bothered to do because, as I've said 350,000 times, I don't really like Roblox very much, so I don't go out of my way to play it. I don't play it in my off time. Like, I literally don't boot this game if it's not for some sort of video or recording. It just doesn't happen. So I'm not going to go way out of my way to do a big event because, well, I just don't care. Charles Angry Birds 0603 says, any plans on returning to Arcane Odyssey after the big Nimbus C new major area update? And this is one where I've basically said no every single time when people ask me about Arcane Odyssey. I honestly have no idea why this game has such like a cult following behind it, especially when Deepwoken is just sort of better Arcane Odyssey. I'm sorry, it's true. But regardless, I actually might cover the update even if I don't play it very much, solely based on the fact that from what people have sent me, those cult followers that I was talking about earlier, it seems like they're doing some cool stuff that I asked for, like, what was it, a year ago? Long time, a very long time. But things like removing level locks that I always felt like were really stupid. There was some questionable changes, like I think there was something on there about removing repeatable quests because there's more ways to level up, which just makes me scratch my head because it's like, well, if you have someone who's not very good and they get to a part that they can't get past and now they can't do a repeatable quest, are they just supposed to like wander around until they get to a higher level so they have a better chance? It just seemed really off-putting and weird, and it's just taking a way for people to level up. Like, if you want to give people more options in order to level up, that's great, but why take away options? That just strikes me as weird. But like I said, this is stuff that I may or may not talk about in its own separate video. But for once, yeah, I might actually talk about the whole Arcane Odyssey stuff. We'll see. Next question is from JT Brinker7865, and they say, serious question, Blox fruit or Arcane Lineage? Choose wisely. You have to pick one. You motherfucker. You son of a bitch. That's hard. I think I'd have to go with Blox fruit, but not by much. Maybe? I feel like Blox fruit is more, it has more content and I'd be able to get further, I'd imagine. Whether that be good or not, I can't really tell you. Because like Blox fruit, I know it's very straightforward. That's why it has a million people playing it. Arcane Lineage is a crapshoot, and it's not like Blox fruit doesn't have its absurdly obscure wiki bullshit, like whatever the fuck it was to get that avoidance hockey or whatever the hell. I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't listen to me. But regardless, there's some cryptic stuff in there, but nothing nearly as cryptic as Arcane Lineage. So at the very least, if the goal was just, well, I have to play this game and I want to get as far as possible, Blox fruit, I got a better chance. So I'd have to go with that, but again, willingly, neither. Please God, neither. Where's option C? Andro308 asks, are Roblox games, first impressions, and reviews the new direction your channel is going in? Also, what impact do you expect to have with these types of content? Well, for right now, I'm in sort of a limbo state, to be perfectly honest with you, when it comes to my channel. With having to basically abandon TCA because it was killing my channel and being effectively forced onto the front page of Roblox, it's been really difficult to figure out what I want to make videos on, just because it's difficult to force myself to play some of these things that, God, I really don't want to. Even if it's just like 2 or 3 hours out of my day to jump onto one of these shitty games and play it in order to make a first impressions video, I still don't want to do it. So I spend a lot of my day nowadays trying to figure out what's the video that this week is going to be on, rather than actually playing or making a video on the games. And I think that shows in a lot of the content being, well, just less effort, because I have less time to work on those things, because I'm too busy trying to sit there on the front page of Roblox just staring at it with like a blank, dead-eyed stare going, oh, please, God, why? Why? Shoot me, why? So, in that kind of sense, the whole first impressions and reviews being the new direction on my channel, that's because I don't have any better ideas. I have no idea what I'm doing right now. I'm so used to having games that I like directly make videos on, so not having that option anymore has me feeling just, well, kind of sort of lost in a sense. As the weeks go by, it gets worse too, because I chip down the more tolerable things, so then there's less and less tolerable things that I have to play. That's how that whole Murder Mystery 2 video came about, because I looked at that and I was like, well, it's not great, but it's something, so I might as well talk about it, so that way I have something coming out this week. But yeah, in terms of where the channel is going, I really don't have a clue. I'm hoping, just sort of praying that some sort of game will come out on the platform that I'll be interested in. I don't think that'll happen, considering that all the games that I'm interested in just seem to die. We've got Titan Warfare, it died. YBA, it's dying. TCA, it was never alive to begin with. Like, all these games that I'm in, TB2, dead. So all these games that I'm interested in either die out straight away or suffer a slow and painful death. And then I'm left with shit like Blox Fruit and Souls RNG being the only things left. And it's just like, oh my God, just end my suffering. Part of me wonders if I need to just get over my aversion to playing a whole bunch of Deepwoken, because that's probably a game I can play for a long period of time. But I know for sure that I'd get burned out of that very quickly, so I don't know. We're just sort of stuck at this point. Dead Teddy Bear 2423 says, what's your criteria for a good game? Any things it needs to have to be considered one? I don't really know if there is a criteria necessarily for good game, because there's a lot of things that can make a good game or a bad game, and a lot of those things are going to vary based on the genre of game. If we're just talking broad strokes, nowadays, the standards seem to get lower and lower, so a good game needs to have non-invasive microtransactions. It needs to work. I mean, why is that here? I wish it wasn't, but today's game developers just release it broken, fix it later. Generally speaking, it needs to have some sort of longevity or staying power, so that way you'll play it for an alright amount of time, but even that isn't necessarily true, because there are plenty of short games out there that are considered good, so I guess I can even axe that, and that's a perfect representation of what I'm talking about. You can't necessarily get a perfect criteria for what a good game is. I can tell you what a good game is or a fun game is to me, but that's not going to transcend to everyone else. Like, for example, I like games with in-depth and long progression systems. That I just like those kinds of games. I like being able to constantly work towards a new thing. There's lots of people that always criticize me because they're like, Eclipse doesn't like grind, yada yada yada, which is completely far from the truth. I don't have any issue with grind. I take issue with grind when it makes it so that way the people who grind are just significantly better than the people who didn't. So, for example, I've grinded several of the Call of Duty Mastery skins. I have almost every single Tier 1 badge for every gun in Battlefield 2042. Neither of those things I had to do. Both of those things are incredible amounts of grind, And yet I did those just for the sake of doing them. And I don't mind doing them that way. But regardless, having that option to do that is something that I enjoy in a game because it just gives me something to do. And without that, I feel aimless. But other people aren't that way. I mean, just look at The Strongest Boring Grounds. That game people love. It's got 100,000 players and it has nothing. There's like barely a game. There's no progression. There's absolutely nothing to keep you playing. And I log on to that and I think, there's nothing to do here, I'm bored, and quit. Like, that's literally what it comes down to. I just don't care. But obviously to the people playing, they're not like me. So good game ends up being subjective. Now on the flip side, criteria for bad game is significantly easier, because a lot of that stuff transcends the barriers. So if you've got a game with ridiculous microtransactions, or just flat out doesn't function, or has absolutely no content whatsoever, is barely a game, those kinds of things, those I think are pretty cut and dry. And even if lots of people are playing a game like that, I think it can still be considered bad by most people. And finally, the last question is, do you think YBA will ever be revived?